Hi, I'm Amy Karanik. Welcome to Sculpey University. Sculpey University is a new video series chock full of tips and projects and techniques, all designed with the polymer clay enthusiast in mind. During Sculpey University, you'll be invited to get all your materials together that you're going to need to complete a project, and then we'll go through the project and work at it together step by step. You can play, fast forward, skip, rewind, whatever it takes to make the project go smoothly and easily for you. If you'd like to, you can download all the Sculpey instructions right from Sculpey's website. On Sculpey University today, we're going to be talking about the basics of color theory and introduce you to the color wheel. And then we're going to jump right in and do a project called the Charming Owl Pendant. Let's go Sculpey! In basic color theory, there is a tool that you can use. It's called the color wheel. So I've made a color wheel out of polymer clay. What else would I use? And I'm going to share with you how it works. So the primary colors in the color wheel, or the foundational colors, are red and yellow and blue. And these are the colors that in pigment, now this is the color theory of pigment, not light. In pigments, it is, conjectured that red can't be made out of any other two colors, neither can yellow or blue. And so those are your primary colors. Now, primary colors can make a good color combination for use in projects. And you'll see red, yellow, and blue used a lot in many places. Now, if you mixed two primary colors together, say yellow and blue, you'd get green. And so green would fall in between there. If you mix red and yellow together, you'd get orange. And if you mix red and blue together, you'd get purple. And so orange, green, and purple, those are the secondary colors. And those two make an attractive color combination. Now, if you go around the wheel and you mix any primary color with the secondary color next to it, you get what we call the tertiary colors. So between red and orange would be red-orange. Between orange and yellow would be orange-yellow. Between yellow and green would be yellow-green. Aren't the color names creative when you get down to these tertiaries? Between green and blue, you'd have green-blue. Between blue and purple, you'd have a bluish purple. And between purple and red, you'd have purple-red. Now the interesting thing about this is you could continue mixing any two colors which are side by side together into infinity to fill this space. If the color has more red in it, you say reddish purple. If the color has more purple in it, you call it purplish red. Now, of course, in polymer clay and in lots of other mediums, we're more creative than that. We might call something mango or pineapple or chartreuse, which are color names that I really love. Let's switch this one out just to make it a little more visible. I think that blue shows up better. So I enjoy naming colors and matching colors, and so I tend to stray away from all that orange, yellow, yellow, orange stuff. Okay, so that is the basic center of the color wheel. Now what happens from here is if you mix any, these are all called hues, and hue is just another name for color. The next word I'd like to introduce you to is called tint. And if you would mix any of these colors with white, say mix this red, a 1-to-1 ratio red to white, then you would get a tint of that red and a tint of orange. And you just go on around the wheel filling these in with their tint. And I just made the tints a different shape so that we could tell them apart from the primaries, secondaries, and the tertiaries. Likewise, how we talked before about mixing these two colors together, you could go on mixing these two colors together into infinity to fill in this space. You could also keep adding white to the colors in higher and higher proportion, and your wheel would just get eternally larger. Okay? So that is the color wheel, the main hues and their tints. First, I'd like to introduce you to warm colors. Warm colors would be everything from yellow. Let's just push these together. And even probably this purple. These are the warm colors. Think of the bright summer sun, or fall leaf colors, or fire. And those are the colors that we're going to call warm colors. And those make a beautiful color combination right there. Cool colors are on the opposite side of the wheel. And when you think of cool colors, you think of things that have a calming effect, like the ocean or the sky. People always tend to think of the cooler colors having more of a peaceful effect on you. And that's another thing I love about studying colors, is that colors can put you in a certain mood or give you a certain feeling. They can help you have retain a memory. If color is important to you, you might remember the color you were wearing that day, or the color he was wearing that day, or the mood because of the color of the sky. Colors have such a dramatic effect on our emotions. Now, a really popular color scheme would be the monochromatic color scheme. And in monochromatics, you would take just one hue and keep mixing it with more and more white. So we could probably throw this one in here and this one in here. And what comes up is a monochromatic color scheme. A lot of times people will add either a white or maybe a gray to that monochromatic. It's still mostly monochromatic. Now, an example of a monochromatic color scheme used in a project would be this beaded necklace. So in these beads, I've got the violet color mixed with varying amounts of a pearl white to give you a nice monochromatic scheme, and then with the silver pop in the background. An analogous color scheme would be any colors in a portion of the color wheel which are side by side, either the hues alone, or you could add the tints in as well. So this would be an analogous color scheme. It would be analogous and warm. And I have an example of a project that was done with analogous color schemes, almost this same combination, orange through purple. And even if you drop a color out of the scheme, it's still analogous because it came from that same section of the wheel. All right, another color combination or color choice I'd like to talk about is complementary. Now, complementary happens when you select two colors that are directly opposite each other on the color wheel. And they're said that those two colors used together, they complement each other. They bounce off each other. Red makes green look greener. Green makes red look redder. And that's so common in Christmas decorations. Here's a keychain that I made up with obviously the green-red color combination, because they just bounce off each other and they highlight each other so well. Another way that complementary colors are often used is in like sports team jerseys. You'll very oftenly see a yellow and purple combination, or an orange-blue combination, like the Fighting Illini here in Illinois. So complementary colors are used a lot. Now, one thing that's really interesting about the complementary colors is if you mix red and green together, you're going to get a neutral hue, probably something in the brown department. If you mix an orange and blue together, your outcome is going to be something in the gray department. So that's kind of where the neutrals play in, because when you look at the wheel as I have it laid out now, you're like, well, where's all the brown and the gray and those kinds of tones? And those tones actually come from mixing opposite colors together. So you should try it and see what you come up with. Okay, now after complementary color combination, let's talk about split color combinations. A split complementary would be your main complementary, But a split complementary would be like one color off from directly across from each other, like this purple green. And those work really well. A lot of times it makes, this is a nice bracelet done with the purple green and white for an accent color. Here's a picture frame done in almost the same complementary split, where you have the purple and the fuchsia versus the green. One of my favorite color combinations I mentioned earlier would be rainbow. So if you pulled every other color in on your color wheel, that would give you an obvious rainbow. What's also true is that even if you don't use the primaries and the secondaries like I did there, if you would just do every other color, you're still going to come up with a rainbow. This one is slightly off. Maybe you'd call it off key a little, but it's still a rainbow and a beautiful color combination. You can even create, rainbows out here in your tinted areas and in your pastels. And they always look good together. I have a project that is highlighted with the rainbow color combination, and I used white in the background. White just makes the colors pop and helps them be separated from each other. We need to talk a little bit about how white and black fall in. Now, white and black, in the theory of pigments, white would be the presence of all colors, and black would be the absence of all colors. But for color combinations, white and black, as I've shown you in so many other projects, just tend to make all the other colors pop. And white and black used singly by itself is also equally dramatic and beautiful and very popular. Also, white and black makes a striking color combination when you add just a single color to it and let that, in this case, this is a black and white color combination, but then it has the green is just such an excellent pop color. We talked before a little bit about neutrals and how they are made, but let's look at some neutral colors that I didn't really have shown on the wheel. And some of these have metallic in them because I'm working with polymer clays, and there's so many great metallics. You have browns for neutrals and grays for neutrals, pearls. We can even throw in white and black as neutral. And neutrals work really well alone as color combinations, but they also work exceptionally well to highlight other projects, or other colors, I should say, other color choices. Here I've got a really neat neutral color combination frame, but it does feature like a blush and a turquoise and a green, but all the colors work well together in this neutral format because the entire piece was antiqued with a dark chocolate brown. And so it really is a neutral color scheme, even though it has some accents going on. Alright, well now just for fun, I'd like to show you a couple ways that you can, a good jumping off place for making color combinations would be to do a custom color or a color match. And what I'm talking about is, say you have a scarf or something that you really enjoy wearing. When you wear it, you get all kinds of compliments because it's a good color for you. And you think, wow, I'd like to make something in that color combination, maybe even to go with that scarf. Well, I bring fabrics and textiles into my studio all the time so that I can match them. And this one's quite easy. All you do is just start pulling out colors and matching them right on the scarf. Let's see, I need a little purple for in here. I'm even throwing in some of my tints. There's a neat orange back in here. Certainly there's quite a lot of white. And then I've got a really bright aqua over here. And so what you come up with is possibly a color combination that you maybe hadn't thought to put together before. Now when you're choosing colors, one rule of design theory, and I won't get too much off into design because we're talking about color, but kind of a good rule in design is to go with an odd number of colors. There's something about odd numbers of colors that really attract the eye more than even number of colors. Now, of course, every rule can be broken, but I think the key to rules is knowing what they are and then mastering them and then knowing when to break them. Here's another color matching process. I'm using scrapbook paper and just pulling colors in as I see them on the paper. Like I said before, there might be something about this paper that really draws you in, or about some other paper that you have in your collection that really draws you in. You're not quite sure why, but you know it looks good together. And there you go. Certainly a color combination that looks good together and would work well together, but I may not have even thought of it off the top of my head without this color inspiration. All right, so for today's Sculpey University project, we're going to be making this charming owl, and I call him a charming owl because he's got a charm. And my color combination that I've chosen for him looks like this. I chose a blush and a peacock pearl and ultramarine blue, and then this is a Mokume Gane technique, and in Mokume Gane a lot of times the colors sort of end up mixing together, not completely, but they do tend to influence each other a little bit in color blending. And so I always pick at least one pearl, and in this case I have two. The peacock pearl and the antique gold are both metallic, and I find that when those colors sort of shade each other, those little bits of mica flake just really pop out there and really draw the eye in more, and it gives it more of a depth. Now this color combination that I've chosen for the owl, let's just put our wheel back together real quick and see if we can figure out how it fits. Okay. So if we have our wheel like this, there's a couple different ways I could look at this. This color would fit somewhere in this zone out here, and of course then we've got the darker blues and the brighter blue, and so this is loosely an analogous color combination that I've chosen for the owl. But also, if you think about it, if I pull out just my primaries, my red, yellow, blue, there's all kinds of various primary combinations, and this almost fits, if you will. Allow me to substitute my blush for my red, my gold for my yellow, and this darker blue for that blue. This is sort of fits into the area of a primary color combination, and then with yet a fourth color to highlight. And there I go again, breaking the rules already. I said choose 5 colors and I've chosen 4, but it all works and it's all fun, and I hope that you so enjoy making all your color combination choices, and that you're able to draw from some of the things that you've learned here today on the basics of color theory. Now you might want to just go ahead and make yourself a color wheel. I'd suggest using all kinds of Sculpey and Premo Sculpey to do that, and just have fun. Here is what you're going to need to design and create this little cutie owl pendant with a charm on the bottom. I call him the charming owl because he's got a charm. All right, you're going to need in Premo peacock pearl, ultramarine blue, antique gold, and blush. And I would love it if you could go ahead and condition those through your pasta machine on the thickest setting so that you have a little sheet of each color. To get that much color, I just used 1/4 of each bar. Okay. Now this is a tool that I use just to section clay. It's just a square cookie cutter. You don't need this. You could just use your blade and a ruler. This just helps me keep my volumes of clay consistent. You're going to need some sort of a slicing blade, like a super slicer, an acrylic clay roller, the Sculpey dots block for making the Mokume Gane technique on the little owl's body, and a spritzer of water. Also, you should probably have some paper towels on hand, a pair of tweezers, and these are hot fix crystals. They've got the glue adhesive already on the back so that when they go in the oven with the clay, they will melt and stick right to your clay. I'm picking this purple clay tool because it gives me a good pointer on one end, and this end will come in handy for decorating the eyes, this flat spatula end. I also have the smallest etch and pearl tool for poking some holes. And for finishing the owl, I have a 16-inch ribbon cord complete with findings. And I have a couple of really large jump rings. Let me tell you how big these are. The smaller one is 3/8 of an inch, and the larger one is a 1/2 inch, and these are in antique gold. All right, so first thing you need to do is cut out a piece from each of these. And like I said, you don't really need a square cookie cutter for this, but I always have one on hand. It helps me keep the volume of clay that I use consistent throughout my project. When I do Mokume Gane, I always want to incorporate at least one color that is metallic. And so for this project, I have both the antique gold and the peacock pearl. Those are both in metallic because the metallics just show through so well. You can see the shine of the metallics when they're incorporated into the Mokume Gane. Now organize these together so that colors that are touching each other if you can picture them blending well together, like the antique gold on top of the blush. The antique gold is also going to blend really nicely with the peacock pearl. And then I've got the ultramarine blue on top. But then later, when we section this and regroup it, the ultramarine blue is going to be touching the blush. And that will be very pretty together as well. So I've got those piled up like so. Next, I'm going to roll over this with my acrylic clay roller. And what I want to do is double the area of my clay in both directions. So if I had like a 2 by 2 inch square to start, I'm going to end up with like about a 4 by 4 inch square. And when I roll over something, I like to pick it up and flip it so that it doesn't stay stuck to my work surface. And I'm just cheating by pulling my corners out so it's more square. Okay, now I'm going to section this with my super slicer into 4s and then regroup just by piling this up. And it doesn't matter if all your edges aren't nice and neat. For Mokume Gane, that's one of the great things about it, is that it just doesn't matter if the edges are neat or not. And roll over both sides. And we're going to cut again, section into 4s. And regroup one more time. Okay, now this time we're just going to lightly roll over it, and I'm primarily going to go one direction and then the other, just to give me a nice little area to work with. A little bit this way, not much. I mostly want to keep it kind of as a long rectangle. Okay, so this piece is ready to texture. Before I texture it with my Sculpey texture block, I'm going to spray over it with a little bit of water. The water just acts as a good release between the clay and the texture blocks so that they don't get stuck together permanently. And I'm just gonna put a lot of hand pressure on here. And really make sure that all my dots are sinking in. And then lift the block back up. Okay? Alright, now you'll want to blot away any excess water because water is not an ingredient in polymer clay. So I'm even cleaning that up off my work surface. And make sure it's off the surface of the clay. Okay. Now with your sharp blade, you want to just start shaving the texture back off. Okay, and look at those beautiful patterns that are coming through. You want to shave right through and see how I can see my blade through there. That's how I know I haven't gone too deep, because I can still see my blade. This is such a beautiful color combination. Showing through. You can shave down as far as you would like. If you want to leave some of those little peekaboo holes, you certainly can. Or you can shave all the way down until it's completely flat again. And each time you shave, it's going to show you different color combinations. And they're all beautiful. Okay, look at that. How pretty. Alright, now I forgot to talk about the cutter that I'm going to use. This cutter is actually a leaf shape, but every once in a while when I'm working in my studio and I'm playing with shapes, I might just look at the most basic shape and think, oh, I can see how I could possibly make that into an owl. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm going to roll over this real quickly just to make sure it's really nice and flat on top. And then I'm going to cut out an owl shape. Line it up. If you see an interesting color part on here, just line it up to include that part. This is going to be the owl's tail down here. And you don't have to have a shape exactly like this. I'm sure that you could make do with any type of a very simple leaf. You could even bend it to represent this shape better. And then turn your cutter sideways and cut this top off. Cut the point off. And now you can see more of the shape of the owl's ears up here and his little tail down here. Okay, now with this part, I like to save that for his wings. But first, I want to make this body section a little bit thicker. So just take the leftover from one of your clay colors and line the body up on there. And then cut down through this. I want the body part to be thicker than my wing part. So I'm going to cut this again. Push this out with my finger and then turn this and cut the space above his ears off again. Okay. Really pretty. Now what I want to do here is I'm going to cut this little section in half, and that will give me two cute little wings. And they're not quite as thick, so they'll sit down lower, just to add a little bit more dimension and shape to my owl. And attach the wings on the sides. Alright. Now let's add just a little bit of this peacock pearl color for the eyes. Just make two little BBs about the same size. I got one a little bigger than the other. position those side by side up in the eye area and just push those down to flatten them. Then use your purple tool to make like little asterisks in each eye. Give your owl kind of that starry-eyed look, like so. And then use just a tiny scrap of your antique gold, and with the point of this tool I'm going to poke in right at the base of the eyes, right in between them. And I'm rolling up a ball of the antique gold in my fingers, and then I'm twirling my fingers to make a point on one side, and that point is going to go down inside the hole. And then I'm going to use my thumb and my forefinger to push it in and point up the beak at the same time. Okay. Now you can use your flat part to open up a mouth in the beak, and use this end to open it up a little bit more. Okay, now we're ready to set in some eyes. Just take your tweezers and get a couple of these. I'm using light pink hot fixed stones, and set the eyes right in the middle of those little asterisks in the blue eyes, and then push down to set those in place. Okay, now with your needle tool, I'm going to go ahead and pick this up. You want to go ahead and poke a hole in the top. Make sure it's far enough away from the edge that the hole won't tear through. And I'm pushing and drilling through with one hand, and then I'm going to pull it back out, flip him over, and drill back through that little belly button there, pushing it back in. Makes the hole look neater on the back side. Okay. And then you want a hole to go through this way so that you can put that little jump ring on there with the charm. So just real gently drill and push until you feel it coming out the other side like that, and then pull it out, and right where you saw it coming through, poke that back through and drill and twist it back through. Okay, we're going to bake this at 275 for 30 minutes. Then when it's all done, you can add your jump rings. Open the smaller one up. I'm just opening these with my fingers. Now, a jump ring you would hardly ever open in this fashion. Usually a jump ring you want to only twist open like so. But I'm having to open it this way so that I can get it around that thick part of the clay head. I'm going to need a little bit more. Line it up on the back and then pinch that closed. Now if you want to go ahead and put a charm on this one, you can go ahead and do that, and then insert your jump ring in the holes like this and squeeze it closed. String that onto your ribbon cord. Like so. And voila, happy, charming owls. Thanks for joining me on Sculpey University, and I hope you have a hoot making some of these for yourself.